things on the right side and the wrong things on the wrong side.
Cosine equals 87 divided by 105, the square root of 105.
I mean, I can't always be their little girl.
Good cry. The colors are nice and pink, too. Boy, not even her hands or feet are blue. You're real healthy, aren't you?
Like a mother checking for fingers and toes, a nurse examines a newborn's physical condition.
Slap your foot. You're gonna cry, huh?
Yeah. What'd you do to my foot?
Genetically unique, each child faces a special experience with the world that will help fulfill his or her developmental promise.
Oh, you have a good, strong heartbeat, too. You get a 2 on that. You're a perfect 10. Yes, you are. Does it have directions in it?
I don't know. I think you can...
Maybe.
Oops. No, I think that's for height. I don't know. Wow, look at there's a lot of bathtubs to choose from, isn't there? It's too small for diapers. Maybe it's for bottles or something like that. How are we going to tell what kind of nipples to use for our bottles?
This has blankets. Do they all have blankets?
Maybe that would be something to get instead of the food grinder. That just does it more. What is it, electric? Automatic? There's no switch back here. Maybe it's down here. I think if you pulled on that, it probably would bring it down.
Pull it up.
The world of the child is defined by parents. Their circumstances, expectations, and support strongly influence the very course of development.
Well, I'm sure we'll be back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll be back a lot of times.
Probably most important are loving parents who have the emotional resources and add to that the economic resources to provide sensitive care. Parents who are well cared for themselves, parents who are satisfied with their lives, parents who are happily married, parents who have jobs that sustain their egos, make them feel good about themselves, as well as provide good income. Then growing up in a neighborhood that's stable, that's child-centered, that's not dangerous, where there's not a fear of crime and bodily harm. Then being able to go to child care arrangements where you have caregivers who are providing stable, quality care, sensitive, get to know you. Boy, if you can have that kind of set of experiences and those resources brought to bear, you can face virtually anything in life.
Our standard view is that development unfolds, that children will make or not make a decent developmental progress by what they bring to the situation. What this says is that children bring capacities to the situation. We do have to pay attention to individual differences, but the environment provides opportunities. The sociologists talk about an opportunity structure. And for those kids growing up where those opportunities don't exist, that their opportunity structure is different, they'll have quite different outcomes than for children who grow up where there are more positive opportunities in their environment.
For many, that environment is not enriched. Poverty can constrain every stage of development.
If we look at the consequences of poverty, we can see how important that environment can be. Development occurs in a social context, and poverty influences that context. A mother who becomes pregnant, who is poor, is likely to have much poorer prenatal care.
The time from conception up through the 3rd month of pregnancy is the most important for the actual formation of the fetus. And so a woman's nutritional state during those first few weeks, when many women may not even know that they're pregnant, is very important. And so a woman considering pregnancy should be counseled against cigarette smoking, drug use, alcohol intake, and to good nutritional practices even before she does conceive.
A father is a man who picks you up and holds you tight when you're little and afraid.
Family matters in the life of a child. Not only do family members provide support, they project onto the child expected roles for the future.
There's the baby who's supposed to carry on the family tradition. There's the baby, which I've seen a lot of in first-generation immigrant families, whose major role is to increase the upward mobility of the family. They're going to be the the professionals or make money or do things to raise the level. Now, these kind of fantasies in the mother's mind are normal, they're important, they allow the cultural and the family values to operate on the baby, but they're sitting in here inside the mom's head, and they get played out in very subtle ways in the mother's behavior, in the actual interaction with the baby, and then they will ultimately influence, not directly, but through her behavior, how the baby sees himself and how the baby, thinks she's supposed to be.
When a parent goes into a newborn nursery, for example, and sees their little baby, they see a sweet little girl or a sweet little boy, but they also see something else. They see a doctor, a lawyer, a cinematographer, a variety of other things. And not only do they see the doctor and the lawyer, they know in their heads how they would get that little baby to be the doctor and lawyer. What kind of schooling experiences, what kind of family experiences should produce that outcome.
Do you want to take to see, honey? Maybe. You turn it on?
These fantasies are not necessarily bad things that a mother needs to be aware of to get rid of. The point is that there certainly are situations that are risky for the kid, where the mom has a fantasy that is so dominant or intrusive that it prevents her from seeing who the child really is. And then it inhibits the freedom of the child to grow in different ways.
What you got?
Slow and deep. In through your nose, out through your mouth.
Construction plan.
Nice cleansing breath. Let's hear it in.
Couples preparing for a birth also often take a deep breath as they prepare for a whole new way of life.
There are two major areas that are affected by the transition to parenthood. One is a personal one, the sense of identity that adults have. The way they think about themselves changes when they become a parent. The other major area to change is the marriage. And those are not mutually exclusive areas. One of the major challenges for prospective parents and new parents is to balance individuality with mutuality.
If you breastfeed that first year, you're going to save about $1,000. Not counting. Dads always perk up when I say that. Not counting the visits to the doctor that your baby won't have to make.
Once you have a baby, child rearing becomes a whole new arena for marital conflict. It's something new to fight about. Do you get up at night when babies cry? Is it best to pick them up? Will that spoil them? Is that what they need to develop properly? Who should get up at night when the baby cries? What are the values you wish to impart? The kind of child-rearing practices and beliefs that you have? Do you just let them grow on their own? Should parents be very active in directing the child's development? Those will be new issues where parents, if they're not of a mind, may find themselves very strongly holding on to their own beliefs and conflicting with their partner.
Dr. Goldberg interviews expectant parents to examine the hopes and fears of mothers and fathers.
I have a mind that can race 50 years down the line, and I can think about, this child going through high school and college, and will this child want to go to college? Will this child embrace education the way I do? Will this child, do all these things that in my mind I have as some ideal? It's just terrifying. Will we be able to raise this child? I have seen my parents raise, I think, 5 very good individuals, and then, for a while, I put them up on such a pedestal that how could they possibly have accomplished this amazing feat of raising these children? And that scared me for a number of years through my early 20s. Like, there's no way I'm ready to do those things. There's no way I'm ready to be a parent. And then in the last few years, I've found that you start to realize that, my parents actually made mistakes. They made quite a few mistakes. And that suddenly gives you that opening to say, well, heaven knows I'm fallible, so I make plenty of mistakes, so maybe I am ready to do this. And that's something valuable that I can take from them and apply to my parenthood experience.
Contraction in.
One of the things we see is that marriages change after babies arrive. Often the household division of labor, who does what, becomes more traditional. Mothers doing more of the baby care, doing more of the cooking, cleaning, shopping, even in dual earner families where both parents are employed. One of the important things now is sort of how do those changes in marriage and family life affect the parent's ability to provide care? If that baby's presence creates for a more traditional division of labor and a more traditional family system, that doesn't make the mother happy. She ends up arguing with the husband about it. That creates a conflict in marriage. That undermines the mother's sensitivity as well as the father's availability. The child all of a sudden has inadvertently evoked poor quality care. But if they have the marital strength, then all of a sudden that baby is actually a way of tightening the marriage, making it stronger, providing more emotional support, let's say, for the mother and the father, really being able to provide sensitive, supportive care, thereby facilitating the baby's development. Just the baby's presence, as well as who the baby is, shapes the experiences the baby will have, which will then come back and affect the child. And that's why we think about a reciprocal dynamic system between child and the environment.
There's also psychological literature that suggests that the quality of the relationship that we as adults had when we were young, the relationship we had with our parents, predicts the quality of the relationship that will form between our children and ourselves. This is the intergenerational notion of attachment. The quality of attachment in one generation may bear on the quality of attachment in the next. So it'll be interesting to explore how men and women's sense of being nurtured and cared for adequately in their own childhood bears on the way they think about parenting now that they're about to become parents themselves.
While each generation clearly influences the next, in recent years, the role of the father has been changing.
There's a greater societal acceptance for men to identify themselves as parents and be actively involved in parenting. Men are almost routinely involved in labor preparation classes now. They were not before. That means that they're prepared to be at the birth and assisting with the birth. And that makes for a very different kind of experience today for couples becoming parents.
What I've observed as a Lamaze instructor over the years is that when you see the dads come back for a reunion, you'll see the babies in the dad's arms. And when you go up on the floor and see the moms, the dads are holding the baby. And they don't talk about her birth experience, it's our birth experience. So that it's not only the bonding with the baby, but it's the bonding with the couple.
We now live in a society which in many ways is much less child-centered, where parents often feel as if they don't receive the support. And I think what parents need to understand is that what they're doing is as important as anything that they could be doing. And the longer they live, the more they will come to realize that. And an important thing to keep in mind is that the glass can either be half full or half empty. Sure, this child is a pain in the neck sometimes. You know, I've got to make a special meal for him. I've got to get up in the middle of the night. I've got to hassle with my employer because I got a sick kid. I've got to remake a child care arrangement. But the child is also a source of wonder and delight. Just watch what he or she can do. Just watch the devotion that child will show towards you, that child wants your love, needs your love, and how wonderfully easy it really is to love that child if you just let yourself.
The transition to parenthood is expected to be stressful, but when the birth is premature, it can be harrowing.
Because babies get sick so fast, you have to always be on your toes, you always have to be thinking, you have to be aware of little changes, minute changes in the babies that can be easily missed but highly significant, because if you miss them, it could be too late.
And the first time I looked at him, I felt kind of faint. I've never fainted before in life, but that time, it was just he had so many wires and tubes, and he was so small. I'd never seen a baby that little before.
Kyle Andrews was born after only 24 weeks of gestation.
I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to breathe good, if his heart was going to be strong and things like that. But after I saw him the first time, and actually I walked in and they had a plastic cover over him, and they had an IV plate in his hand, and he reached up and pushed it up. And I said, well, he's okay, he's going to be strong.
It's important for later bonding for parents to think of the baby from the very beginning as a well baby, a small baby. They really are born just early, and we in the critical care unit provide the artificial environment that would be the womb. And the parents see a lot of high technology in a critical care unit and think of their babies as sick. So they need constant reassurance that their babies are just small babies that will go home as well babies and have their appointments in the well baby clinic.
This baby is not that fat, bouncing baby boy or baby girl. And then the baby is taken out of that room, taken up to a neonatal intensive care unit, and many times this is the parents' first glimpse of what an NICU is like, and they just walk into another world. And their lives will never be the same after walking into that world. I think parents really suffer from a feeling of loss of control. This was their baby, and now it's being taken care of by someone else. I think they suffer from a tremendous sense of failure, even if they had taken care of themselves perfectly throughout the pregnancy.
What's gonna put the gown on, man? Oh, what's the matter? Daddy's boy fussing?
It's real important for the medical team to encourage them to get involved with the baby early on by stroking, by talking to the baby. The mother's voice is usually the voice that the baby has heard all throughout the pregnancy, and even very small babies can hear. So literature shows that even the smallest babies will grow and thrive much better if there's early parental contact.
An extended family can share the burden.
My stepmother comes almost every other day. My mother comes regularly. I think it's more difficult for like my dad. He comes in and the monitors frighten him, you know, and they tell me that that's not uncommon with me, and not him though. He comes all the time. He comes at 1 o'clock in the morning and feeds him.
I really respect the ability of these parents to survive this, to survive with their families intact, and these parents to continue loving this baby, which it's very difficult to bond with and love a baby who, you know, weighs 2 pounds and looks more like a fetus than a baby and may have all sorts of IVs and endotracheal tubes and monitors, and the baby really just looks like this little bit of human being surrounded by these machines. And yet these parents, they bond and they come in and they talk to these babies and they really connect.
I always had faith that he would come through it, but he had a colostomy done, and right after the surgery there was a point where he hadn't urinated for a day, and up until this point he hadn't had any nutrition. It's funny, that night my wife and I came in and she was crying, and you know, she was frightened. We both were frightened, and I took her home, and I guess it was about maybe 3 or 4 a.m. I said I have to go back, so I got up and I came back in, and I sit there, and the nurse was monitoring him, and I saw just a little trickle of urine, and that was the point for me when I knew that he was going to be okay.
I went and told everybody that he willed him to use the bathroom. And they did, everybody, I mean, even the doctors and everything, that was a turning point for them too, and that was a very positive sign that he was on his way to recovery, because he got really, really sick after the surgery. He came through the surgery okay, but the next 24 hours, 40 hours were really tough on us, and we thought we were going to lose him.
They still see this child as a very special and almost miraculous child. They almost lost this baby, and this helps now for them to just value life. Oftentimes family becomes very special, and children's place in the family.
I had told his mom early in the after he was born that he was a special, and I think this kid's gonna do something special. All the things that he's gone through since he's been here, and he's never stopped fighting, so I think he's gonna do something special. Oh, baby.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's all right. Good. Okay.
The pain of labor for most women is related to the uterus contracting. It's important to remember that the uterus, which was prior to pregnancy somewhat smaller than a medium-sized pear, is now the size of a watermelon, and it's a muscle. And when it contracts, there are nerve endings in it that respond to the contraction with pain, just as if you were to get a really bad cramp in your calf. As uncomfortable as that is when the muscle squeezes down, that's what a labor contraction can feel like. And labor contractions are intermittent. They varies from every 2 to 5 minutes and can last up to 90 seconds. And during that squeezing sensation is when pain occurs.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do it again.
I'm dizzy.
Okay, take a breather.
There are several different ways to have a baby. What's referred to as a normal delivery generally means a vaginal delivery unassisted by any kind of technical intervention. And that's the most common type of a delivery. There is a forceps-assisted delivery or a vacuum-assisted delivery. The two are very similar. They all are both vaginal delivery, but there is a medical intervention. There is cesarean section, which is an operative delivery through the abdomen, not through the vagina. And there are several different indications for that. One of the more common ones is that the baby's head does not descend well into the birth canal, or the cervix may not dilate to 10 centimeters, despite the fact that the mom has been in very adequate labor with adequate contractions and adequate pain control, adequately relaxed. And this is referred to as either failure to progress if the cervix doesn't dilate, or failure to descend if the baby doesn't fit through the birth canal despite adequate pushing efforts on the mom. I often tell patients we're trying to put a circle through a triangle, and if it's not oriented quite right, sometimes it's not going to fit. And those are times when a cesarean section is necessary.
Developmental psychologists are interested in the birth process and in the neonate in the first days of life for two basic kinds of reasons. One is concern about problems in the birth process that might influence later development. For example, there's a fair amount of research on the impact of different kinds of anesthetics on later development. Infants have poorly developed physical systems for processing anesthetics away, and therefore anesthetics that get from the mother to the infant have implications for several months down the road in development. The other reason we're interested in the birth process in neonates is to have a picture of the skills and capabilities that infants have at the very beginning of life. What is it they're capable of doing? How well is their nervous system functioning? And so on. That is, what is the starting point for later development?
We think that all parts of the brain are functional early on. And there's some fascinating studies that would support that. For example, learning that the fetus seems to do even before birth. So we think that there's some capacity that the fetus has even for some simple kinds of learning.
Welcome to the world, partner.
Now all I have to do is figure out which one of those names we want.
That's right. That's right.
No matter who what we choose, someone's going to be unhappy.
The infant is responsive to the environment. Its eyes work, its ears work. The infant can do things that are adaptive. Some of those things the infant does are reflexes. So if the infant starts to choke, there's a gag reflex that will help the infant keep from choking. The infant, if you move slowly, can follow your movements. So the infant can direct its information gathering by directing its eyes.
In the very beginning, babies have sort of limited head control, but very quickly in the first week or two, babies develop more and more head control. I mean, this would be something that we would have to have if we were going to be able to respond to external stimuli. And it's clear that part of what the baby is doing is organizing his or her responses to the external world.
The birthing environment has moved away from a medical environment. And I think that has come with the realization that pregnancy and childbirth are normal life events. They're not disease states. And we wanted to move away from making people feel that they could not control the events that went on, that they did not participate, that something was happening to them or being done to them or for them without their influence.
8 pounds, 4 ounces. Look at that.
Fathers are actively encouraged to participate in the support of the moms during labor and are present at the time of delivery. We offer sibling classes and invite mature and ready siblings to be available at the time of delivery. And all of these things have, I think, helped everybody, both the prospective parents and the medical personnel, to have a warmer feeling at the time that a woman comes in labor, rather than to feel that they are in a hospital and therefore the typical illness mode comes into play. That has been a very, very positive influence.
You're wonderful. But it never ceases to amaze me. It's quite a miracle. Quite a miracle.